It's 2041. We're
Yes.
back at it.
Glorious return after, when was the last episode? I think we did that in like 1972.
Yeah, Dom was 3.
Yeah.
So we're back at it. Starting the label retrospective, I totally forgot what we were even doing this on until like 3 days ago.
Yeah, it's just a lot of...
You had COVID 500 times, despite being boosted. This is your 47th booster.
Yeah. No, I can actually feel the nanobots coursing through my vein. It's funny because they're little, what the nanobots look like, they're little hammer and sickles. Fucking communism just running through me. No, I've never had it. I avoided it for how many years and then ended up getting it and was just like, whatever. But then, just kept pushing it and pushing it.
Yeah.
And shit happening and the holiday, the Thanksgiving, and my God.
Since this is going on YouTube, talk to your doctor. We don't know anything about vaccines. Don't steal my bank account. I have a child. Whatever, please don't.
Yeah, jeez. Gets flagged.
I don't want one of the 14 people that watch these to be a Fed, so just please don't.
Yeah, we don't want to be on the same list.
Don't
Alex
ruin my
Jones
life. Yeah, it's like... But no, this is a Peaceville episode. Really excited about this. One of my favorite labels of all time. We're starting the label retrospective, which is great. Great way to start. So much stuff to cover with Peaceville. Really, 87 and 94, really the golden era. So many bands, so many classic releases.
Still going strong today.
Still going strong, yeah. Still one of
Not owned by the same people, the same guy, that Paul Hamshaw or whatever.
No, yeah.
Somebody else.
Hammy, as he was known back in the day.
Yeah. You would know more about this, I think, since you're more of like a punk crust.
Yeah.
Kind of, I like the doom death side of it. A lot of the stuff that was released on this label was great. When you said you want to do label kind of retrospectives or whatever, your label spotlight series, starting with this one, and we'll run through obviously Century Media, Nuclear Blast,
Relapse.
We're
going to do an episode too with Razorback with Billy Sarah as a guest too.
Yeah, that's coming up next month, right? Yeah. That'll be another great one. I know you wanted to do Def Jam.
I would love to do Def Jam. I would love to get Russell Simmons in here to
Death Row.
Yeah. Well, I want Suge Knight in my house. I would like to, but at Peaceville, a lot of people don't. One of the things that's great about Peaceville, 87 when it starts. I mean, Scum comes out in 87 by Napalm Death. Arise by Amebix comes out in 87. So being in England, Peaceville obviously was at the forefront, the center of that kind of punk crust scene and the Birmingham scene with Mermaid and stuff like that, Mermaid Club. So the Vile Peace Comp comes out, Civilized Society releases a record. Electro Hippies, The Only Good Punk is a Dead one of the classic releases with people that would end up being in Carcass. So really just a great start. Axe Grinder, Rise of the Serpent Men. Those are great releases that you don't really... I think it's cool that Peaceville has the punk roots. And I even think, looking back as we'll go through it, a lot of the metal bands they had also seem to have that kind of a punk aesthetic anyway, and kind of retain that, which is different than... eventually they have other bands that are more death metal oriented classically, but they always had somewhat of a different flavor than a lot of the other extreme metal labels.
Yeah.
And I think that really kind of set them apart. They always kind of had their own identity. Even the Peaceville 3 that we'll get into.
It was always, and it was really... They've always been like a real serious label to me. Not too big that they were just signing shit after shit after shit, like what Century Media has become.
Yeah.
It just got to a point where it was so ridiculous, or earache. This Peaceville always seemed to just kind of not give a shit about anything else. They had like a core group of bands that are still ultimately
around, yeah.
And so they've always been one of those labels that even today, if I see something's on Peaceville and I don't know what it is, I know I'm going to fucking check it out.
They also tend to have bands that I think maybe even at the time were maybe not the biggest bands in any kind of given scene, but were well-respected bands. So we'll get into like Autopsy and even Dark Throne at the time when Dark Throne first started changing up their style, a lot of people didn't think, that it was going to be what it was and get as big as it was. And Peaceville was, it took a label like Peaceville to let Dark Throne do what they did, which we'll get into when we get to Dark Throne. But, to start off with, I think some of those early releases, A Vile Peace Comp had stuff like Sore Throat on it and just tons of great, releases that were just, Deviated Instinct, Rock and Roll Conformity, Welcome to the Orgy, classic punk, crust punk releases. Those, Stenchcore those are the gods of that style. And I think Deviated Instinct and Axe Grinder were punk bands that kind of brought a classic doom sound into their music. I mean, they were listening to stuff like Pentagram and Sabbath, and it showed in their music. So I think when Peaceville got more well known, with, we may as well get to the big three if we're going to talk about Peaceville. Paradise Lost, Anathema, My Dying Bride. Those are, those bands really, along with Cathedral in England, also brought doom to the underground mainstream. I mean, to the underground presence.
And it's because of Peaceville that I know about Pentagram.
Because
they put all those.
Absolutely.
So it's weird that they had all this like crust punk or grind, and then, but what they're really known for is doom.
Yeah, definitely.
Mainly, I would say mainly, obviously with the big three, the Peaceville three, but all of that stuff back in the day, it's weird. This isn't like revisionist history. When you look back at all those early albums, every single one of them are fucking awesome. That's the crazy thing.
It's crazy. It is crazy. I had Paradise Lost on the last few weeks, with Lost Paradise and Gothic, particularly, and especially with Gothic. I was like, man, there really wasn't anybody doing this kind of stuff. I listened to Lost Paradise and the first Cathedral record, and I was like, everybody kind of gives Cathedral their just due credit for kind of bringing the doom thing back. Man, Lost Paradise is solidly a doom metal record. Take the change the vocals up, and that's up there with any kind of, it's really doomy.
I love those first two. As much as I love the first two, and I think it's great that they're on Peaceville, Paradise Lost to me kind of came into their own as soon as Nick Holmes with Shades of God doing the more clean vocals, even really Icon is for me when they hit their stride, and then obviously with Draconian Times. But those first two I don't think get spoken about near enough, and that's another thing that I'll get into. There's a lot of stuff on Peaceville early albums that people don't talk about near enough, like the early Anathema releases, the early Paradise Lost, the early At the Gates releases.
I think the EPs by Anathema, and I don't do this a lot. Everybody watches this knows, everybody in the group knows. I'm big for liking bands Wilderness Years. That's kind of my thing. After Serenades, I think Anathema can straight up fuck off. I don't want to listen to anything they've ever done after that. Alternative 4 has its moments for me, but Serenades is probably my favorite Peaceville release ever.
Really?
I fucking love that record. I love Serenades by Anathema so much.
I think Anathema...
Along with, I will say, my favorite Peaceville release might be a Thurgothan, Stream from the Heavens. Okay. I think that is the best. It's, you think about 94, death metal's kind of in its apex. Brutal death metal's kind of coming. And this band, Peaceville, just releases this ultra doomy, weird record that's perfectly for Peaceville. That only could be released on a label like that. Yeah. It totally makes sense. But I think of the big three, I think My Dying Bride is my favorite of the big three overall. Because I like their whole catalog.
Here's something that is probably going to shock you. I've never been a My Dying Bride fan. Not that I hate them. I just... It's weird when people are like, all the shit that I'm into, all the death metal, or the doom death, the doom metal, whatever, and they're just like, you don't like My Dying Bride? And it's like, I just never got into them that much.
Well, I think Turn Loose the Swans is just an essential record.
I'll be seeing them next year at, I think they're at...
Around Death Fest?
Death Fest.
Yeah, I think they are.
So, which I love the band. You know, I have a lot of respect for the band, but I just something I've never been into, which is weird because I just played for you the band Godthrim, who has one guy from My Dying Bride and the drummer that was on Anathema Alternative 4. They're in that band, and that Godthrim to me, which I've read so much where people are like, if you like this,
yeah,
go back and check some of the My Dying Bride stuff. Now I do have a few albums, but they're newer ones.
I mean, the Trinity, Trinity of the early stuff, the early EPs, like the Trinity of Swans, obviously, as the Flower Withers, and those are essential. Is it just this? Is it too soft at times? Like
no, not at all. It's weird, dude. It's just one of those things.
They do get a little gothy.
No, I'm totally cool with that. It's just it's like I've heard As the Flower Withers, Turn Loose the Swans. The one that I really like that I have, A Line of Deathless Kings, I think is a really good fucking album.
Oh, yeah.
Really good album. But I know they keep putting material out, and it's all good. But I only have a few of the newer ones. Probably should go back just because of this and just throw them into my collection. Just start buying them.
I would.
But I was a bigger Anathema and Paradise Lost fan. You know, and Anathema to me from... you know, the Crestfallen EP, really from the beginning up to Judgment. Judgment is, it's not heavy like the other stuff.
No,
I think mine is on Music for Nations, so it's not Peaceville. At least my version is.
It's once the Art Garfunkel hair comes in.
But that Judgment to me was like, had that kind of doomy gothic feel, but I think it's a phenomenal fucking album.
Yeah.
After that...
Dread-headed only Anathema.
Yeah. After that, they turned into like Air Supply.
When the Dreads go, I go.
Do it. Yeah. And that band really just fucking turned into something.
For anybody watching, and if you're a younger person, a great template if you see a band. But anybody in a band has dreadlocks on some albums, and you see a picture of them and they no longer have dreadlocks, that album's about to suck. Like something happened. Somebody got married or something the edge is gone. So
my favorite Anathema though, you said Serenades is like your favorite Peaceville release.
It's up there. It's if not the fight's in the top 3.
I think The Silent Enigma is phenomenal. Alternative 4 is a great album. It's weird, man. It takes me back to that time in the late 90s when my buddy and I were really getting into all this stuff. And again, it was one of those where you're like, oh, it's on Peaceville.
Yeah.
It's probably going to fucking be awesome, you know?
I remember looking at the cover of Serenades and thinking, like, what the hell is this supposed to be?
Yeah.
I think Anthony picked it up. And to me, I'm listening back, so many riffs remind me of Celtic Frost.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what they do, actually, early on reminds me a lot of Celtic Frost. And I think Darren was an awesome vocalist. And the Blood Divine doesn't get any credit. When he left Anathema and joined that with members of Cradle of Filth, that's a great doom that's a more doom death too, a little more gothic, but it's also really good. That's a good release that's kind of unsung when he left Anathema. It doesn't get a lot of credit, but it's a great, cool release. Kind of a super great, I think there's a couple records, but that first record's really good. Yeah.
I remember getting into it back in the day because I've always been a huge Moonspell fan, and a lot of people were like, if you like Moons, you gotta check out the Blood Divine, you gotta check out, and I thought it was really cool. They only have 2 albums?
Yeah, 2 records, yeah.
So, but it's weird that those are the big 3 on a label that kind of started as like a punk.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And early on, I mean, they kind of switched to
doom bands.
I mean, as far as the death metal stuff goes, I mean, like the people forget about Def Records too, which I mean, Peaceville has a subsidiary label too, and Def Records is really where they get most of the death metal stuff and a lot of the American style death metal. But I always have to bring up my grind and stuff like that. Gothically's, Def Records. I mean, Gothically's had classic grind releases. Suppose It Was You is up there with like Napalm Death from Enslavement to Obliteration is like one of the most important grindcore releases ever. So that Peaceville kind of has that as well, of having one of those essential records. Theatric Symbolism of Life, they put that out. That's up there with those early Napalm Death records. if you're into grindcore, it's essential to own. And they had that. They had Baphomet, obviously, Dead Shell Inherit,
Dude,
Banished. I mean, all these great. Mortis Skuld is now, and I think Mortis Skuld is like Autopsy, where Mortis Skuld wasn't amazing
on Peaceville,
and their new stuff's incredible, and they weren't people. Not to be revisionist, I'm not going to sit here and go back and say Autopsy and Mortis Skuld were huge bands tonight, because they weren't.
No.
But now they're really respected because their output is insane.
I think that's the one thing, is like, especially with Autopsy, you just stick with Peaceville, or Peaceville stuck with them. They're still putting out albums on Peaceville. They're still good.
Yeah. Peaceville let Abscess do the thing with Relapse and never cared about, Chris doing other projects. And these Autopsy, just go through the Autopsy discography. All of it's on Peaceville. Shit Fun. Up to Shit Fun. Everything. Severed Survival. Fiend for Blood. Retribution for the Dead. If you're into Doom, that has a doomy kind of vibe too. Mental Funeral. Greatest death metal album ever made.
Yes, no, I agree.
Acts of the Unspeakable. Second best death metal album ever made. Like, they're awesome. And they retain, it's perfect when you listen to Autopsy and you realize, like, it's not a leap to go from, like, having Electro Hippies and Deviated Instinct and having a band like Autopsy. It's really not. Because the raw sound.
I think it's more of a leap to go from Electro Hippies to Anathema.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of, but speaking of Mortis Skuld, they do have a new album coming out on Peaceville next year, Creation Undone.
I'm sure it'll be good.
So, they just, their early catalog was, I think, reissued. Dying Remains and As Humanity Fades and For All Eternity. I think those three you can get reissued, if I remember correctly. But they're all good. It's great American style, just U.S. death metal.
I think, even At the Gates, I was jamming like a lot of the early At the Gates stuff with Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness and Red in the Sky is Ours. And I've always had a really love-hate relationship with early At the Gates records. I always kind of found them to be a little hard to get into. It was hard to get into My Dying Bride. I found it hard to connect with early At the Gates really until recently, where I think I really kind of get what they were trying. It's moody. It fits all this perfectly. It fits this.
I'll tell you why. I was thinking about this. Is like one of those bands that
almost like they were searching for a sound the whole time.
When you talk about At the Gates, though, everybody's always going to mention Slaughter of the Soul.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
It's almost like the Peaceville records are kind of forgotten.
Exactly, yeah. So when people talk about At the Gates, oh, Slaughter of the Soul. It's like, yeah, right. But don't you like, the early stuff? And it's like, I know people said the same thing. No, I can't really get into them. But I think they're fucking classic Swedish death metal albums.
Now I really enjoy them a lot more. I like Terminal Spirit Disease a lot more than I did when I was young. I used to have that record and listen to it periodically because I had it, and Anthony didn't have it. He had Red in the Sky is Ours and other ones. I think The Swarm is a great track. Like, they have a lot of good tracks on that record. It's just different than Slaughter. It's just a very different vibe.
Slaughter Soul is real thrashy.
Yeah, more relentless.
It is, and it's genre defining.
Yeah,
for sure. It's been fucking imitated on a bazillion times.
Right. Poorly.
Poorly. And so there was another band I was thinking about that was like At the Gates, where it's like people tend to forget about the early stuff. And I can't remember. Maybe Paradise Lost to a degree that I don't really hear people talking about Gothic and Lost Paradise that much.
I think you can much like At the Gates, you can be a Paradise Lost fan and really not care for the first record.
Yeah.
The rest of their output really doesn't sound like it, so it's not. But I think a band that switched to Earache that has maybe the opposite effect of At the Gates. Pitch Shifter is known for their Peaceville release. Industrial is a genre defined. It's the Godflesh of Peaceville did that a lot, where they had they almost had bands that did that, almost kind of had their own little niche thing in it. And Industrial is another one of my favorite Peaceville releases ever.
That album,
it's fucking perfect,
dude. It's so good. And
up there with Street Cleaner. People always talk about it's a Godflesh ripoff, as if they don't like a billion black metal bands that rip off Emperor.
I'm a Pitch Shifter guy over Street Cleaner. I love Street Cleaner.
Same.
But for me, Godflesh for me was pure. That's my favorite album.
I like Godflesh more than Pitch Shifter as a whole, but I like Industrial more than I like Street Cleaner.
No, that makes sense. Industrial's fucking great, dude.
It's awesome.
It's angry. It's like filthy. I even like, after
There's
that.
dreads. They kept the dreads.
After that, they went to Earache with Desensitized.
They Submit EP on Earache.
Submit, and then
they did one album with the first record with Peaceville, then they jumped ship.
Okay, yeah, and then Submit is cool.
Submit's cool.
I love Desensitized, and then that band just took.
I like www.pitchshifter.com. I like their Prodigy era too.
You do?
Oh yeah, Mike and I both like Pitch Shifter a lot.
You're the only. I remember checking that album out, and I was just like,
I like spiky haired Pitch Shifter.
Like
when they try to look like Green
frosted
Day,
tips.
Oh yeah, when they look like they worked at Gadzooks. I'm into that. Sonic Violence, Jagged, another industrial band that is a Peaceville release.
That I'm not.
It's fucking awesome. It's great. If again another industrial band, like they have, Sonic Violence is an awesome band. Another band that was kind of under the radar, but great for that style if you're into that industrial type stuff. But as far as genre defining goes, I think Dark Throne takes the fucking cake for being the Peaceville band that's. I mean, I love Soulside Journey. It's one of my favorite death metal albums of all time.
For sure.
But the Unholy Trinity, I mean, come on. That's a ballsy move to let a band do that. Nobody really thought that was going to have the splash that it had. And if there's ever a label that made a good decision, it was Peaceville letting Dark Throne put those records out. I'm sure they're still making money off those.
Dark Throne is like the black metal autopsy in that they're on Peaceville. They're still putting out albums on Peaceville.
Yeah, even though they switched to Moonfog in like '95, but for that stream of albums, the mid-era.
That's right. Which ones?
Starting with
was it a Plague Wielder?
Total Death, they leave from Moonfog.
Okay.
So after Transylvania
was Plague
Hunger,
Wielder on Moonfog? Okay.
They were on. They didn't come back to Peaceville until they started the punk crusty era.
No, you can correct me on that because I totally forgot about.
It's cool about Peaceville. They let bands jump and come back and.
I totally forgot. I do remember when Plague Wielder came out and it was color, and people were like, "Oh, they sold out because Dark Throne has color in there." And I'm thinking, all right, that's the fucking.
I'm sorry,
standard.
I think it was after Transylvania Hunger is Panzerfaust. No, it was Total Death or Panzerfaust. Panzerfaust is first.
That was the first one.
For its Moonfog, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I totally forgot. I guess they did, yeah. Goat Lord.
I think they come back with Sardonic Wrath might be the first, or Cult is Alive might be the next one. The next one on Peaceville.
Yeah, Sardonic is Moonfog. I completely forgot.
Check what Cult is Alive might be on.
That's
Peaceville. Okay, so they come back with that, and that's when they start to get punky and.
Yeah, which is. I know a lot of people don't like,
Love that era.
Fuck Off and Die and Dark Thrones and Black Flags.
When people try to again be like, oh, Dark Throne's trying to hop on whenever they're trying to, it's like they go back on a label that started with a vile.
Dude, Fenriz
they started with Deviated.
They do whatever the fuck they want to do.
And Dark Throne, by the way, Fenriz is a big Axe Grinder and Deviated Instinct fan. So
yeah, that dude that's one band I would never say is jumping on a bandwagon or fucking selling out. Those guys do whatever they want. The Underground Resistance is my favorite album.
It's cool. You like a lot of new wave British heavy metal stuff, so
that's why, because they took that Dark Throne sound and which is another great Peaceville release. But they are like Autopsy to me, where it's like they're, like one of those flagship, fucking bands on that label that has been with them, kind of like Cannibal Corpse with Metal Blade, although are they still on Metal Blade?
Cannibal Corpse is still on Metal Blade, yeah.
Yeah, so which is crazy to think.
Cannibal Corpse is never going to leave Metal Blade.
and just like Deceased with Relapse.
Chris Barnes still has a deal with Metal Blade.
Really?
He has something on somebody. Somebody's gonna go to jail if Chris Barnes talks to the cops. So there's no way they're still letting him put out records. But people buy them, so I mean. But I think with Peaceville, it's this classic era is just defined by a lot of these classic albums and these even like More to Scald, Banish. That's like the height of like the U.S. death metal craze, and Peaceville was there, and they also did a lot of great things with distribution, getting stuff, a lot of black metal bands like Thorns. Like once they put out those Dark Throne records, they had that distribution with so many great black metal records where they ended up having a lot of that licensing.
It's crazy when you go and you go just looking through, because you you get on Metal Archives and you go look through their releases, and you're scrolling. It's literally the same fucking bands, core bands that they were: Autopsy, Dark Throne, Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, Anathema.
Yeah,
that's like everything. That's like the lion's share of what they were releasing, with a few other bands kind of thrown in there.
I think it's when Peaceville got with Snapper Music in '96.
That's when
that's a big
space left, right?
Yeah, and that's also when they started to distribute a lot of the black metal. That's where a lot of like Peaceville definitely changes from this classic era, and that's also when early bands like Sore Throat and a lot of the more punk bands were like, fuck Peaceville and the fuck Peaceville comp and all that kind of stuff. A lot of labels did that. That was kind of what happened in the music scene in the 90s.
Yeah, but Peaceville didn't change for the worse, though. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, I don't know, man. It really wasn't like Century Media or something where they just sold out, Peaceville always just kind of stayed.
Yeah.
They didn't really release garbage. Even if there's albums, I'm like, yeah, I'm not really into that band. I never really looked at an album that's on Peaceville and thought, man, what a piece of shit,
Yeah, they don't have really a band or a label I can say like really was also like a huge. I guess Dark Throne would be like the biggest thing for like a cash cow for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like an accident. Mm-hmm. I don't think Peaceville definitely wasn't excited when Dark Throne put out A Blaze in Northern Sky. I don't think anybody was excited about. It's not exactly like it was thought to be a. I think Dark Throne has to be their best-selling band.
I would say
if I really had to pick, maybe Paradise Lost, but
yeah, I was gonna say Paradise Lost. I'd be interested in seeing that. I would. Maybe I don't know.
Those Dark Throne records have been reissued.
I don't know, because I would say Dark Throne, because I don't know. Paradise Lost was really the first two, and then they went to Metal Blade, and then I think they were on like Music for Nations.
Yeah.
Paradise Lost has been on a ton of different labels. I think they're on Century Media now. I could be wrong. They just within the past few weeks just re-released Icon.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was like re-recorded, which I don't have any interest in hearing because I think Icon is a fucking perfect album.
Yeah.
In its own right, but that's a Metal Blade release, so I would say Dark Throne would have to be the highest because they've always been on Peaceville, other than the Moonfog shit. But still, with Paradise Lost, it's only the first two, and I don't see those selling. If it was like Draconian Times on Peaceville, I would say, yeah, probably Paradise Lost.
I think of the new era of Peaceville, like when you go from 95 onward, if I had to pick one record that's my favorite Peaceville record, it's an easy pick for me, and it's got to be... I would have to go... I would say the most pivotal... I should say this. The most important band, I think, from after 95 for them is Catatonia. I think that Catatonia is probably the band I think that defines that second era of Peaceville.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the band. I think Tonight's Decision is one of those critical records in that's like 98. So that kind of really
like that album.
That kind of points them in a new direction and kind of gives Peaceville that new breath of air that they kind of needed. So kind of beyond death metal at that point. Death metal's kind of death metal's in a place in 1998 where Peaceville's not going to put out Devourment records. That's not really what they were going to do. But
here's a question I have for you because I'm always questioning this. A lot of people I meet, like you. A lot of metalheads that I know like really heavy shit or like the death metal style or the more black metal style. Guys like you like later era Catatonia.
I was going to say my favorite record of the
Which is-
second Peaceville is I think
Not that I think there's anything wrong with it.
I
but-
think The Great Cold Distance is the best Peaceville album after 1995.
that's why
It's also one of my
just like-
favorite albums ever made.
No, I'm cool with that, but it's like I think, is it the bass player for Canuja, is it Bergeron? I've seen him post that like he loves newer Catatonia.
Oh yeah, Biello,
I'm like, Biello I can,
Noah from Nunslaughter,
Okay.
huge newer Catatonia.
Biello I get, because he also listens to probably Taylor Swift. No knock on Catatonia. But it's weird because it's like, I don't mind that stuff, the later era Catatonia. I like the first several albums,
I
Green
would
Day.
much rather listen to Tonight's Decision than Great Cold Distance than Brave Murder.
Do Dance
I love
of
Brave
December
Murder Day.
Souls.
Dance of December Souls is cool. Avant-garde era, the avant-garde music era.
Yeah, which Peaceville did put out Dance of December. I think they
Cover, they might have done a cover. Avant-garde music and Peaceville also had a little relationship.
so, but yeah, for me, it's like I always like the early stuff better, but I do really like Tonight's Decision. But they're another band that it's crazy. It's like, yeah, Peaceville.
I can put on The Great Cold Distance any day of the week, anytime.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best, and it's so perfect for Peaceville. And I think Bloodbath is also an important band. After,
Yeah.
Well, not my favorite death metal band. I think it's perfect for the Peaceville label.
Yeah.
They've always managed to put out good death metal records that are, and I think Psy also had some stuff on. And I know you're not a big Psy guy.
I fucking hate that band.
Psy's a great.
I love Japanese metal. Even a lot of the Japanese punk shit that you play, I'm like really like, wow, this is good stuff. And I always go back to try and listen to Psy, and I
you
just
get
think
mad?
it fucking blows, dude. That shit is so awful. I fucking hate that band, and
It's a little too out there for you.
it's just fucking goofy. I don't know, man. It's like fucking clown music. I just can't get into it. But I don't know. I mean, look at this. You're like going through, and it's like the same fucking bands over.
I mean, we
That's
talked
what I
about
like
Doom
about
earlier, but I mean,
Peaceville.
Peaceville put out Pentagram records when nobody was even touching Pentagram.
That's the only way.
And Day of Reckoning, by the way, as far as 94 goes, who was listening to fucking Pentagram in 94? The record's one of the best Pentagram records ever, by the way. Day of Reckoning fucking rules.
Yeah, and that's thanks to Peaceville.
And Be Forewarned.
Dude, thanks to Peaceville, they got me
Be
into
Forewarned was
Pentagram.
94, not Day of
Because I remember hearing about Pentagram, like way back in the day. I mean, I just turned 44, so it's like, my God, I was in high school, and I remember reading music magazines and stuff, and like, oh, Pentagram, I wonder what they're like, and kind of gives you, I mean, the name of the band, the album covers, you're thinking, oh, this has got to be like some black metal or death metal thing, and dude, I picked it up on a whim, and just fucking fell in love with it. I mean, absolutely fell in love with it. That band is, they're on, out of my top 10 Peaceville releases, Relentless is number one for me.
I think as far as the Doom Death stuff goes too, what we talked about Thorgothan and other, I think Unholy doesn't get enough credit either.
They're
definitely a really unique band that doesn't.
They are unique. It's weird, but
It's weird, but it fits that kind of sound. I mean, nobody was really doing that kind of sound.
The later, I wonder if you're into this.
From the Shadows.
Since you're a fucking Dago and a Guinea.
Right.
November. Okay, French name for the band,
Great
but
band.
from Italy.
Awesome band.
Okay, because the early stuff, they're one of my favorite bands. Okay, for that.
I admittedly only really like their early material,
But they ended up on Peaceville, and the last several albums came out on Peaceville. I think they're still a band. I hope that they continue to put stuff out, but yeah, Ursa was the last album 7 years ago.
yeah, Wish I Could Dream It Again is, I mean, that's classic
Dude.
shit. That's
So
94 too, along with.
Wish I Could Dream It Again. If you get Dreams du Jour, whatever, in 2002, that is Wish I Could Dream It Again re-recorded.
Okay, and I'm not really a
Because-
big fan, and I think Paradise Lost just did a re-recording thing of Lost.
Dreams is good because Wish I Could Dream It
I heard the
Again.
Paradise Lost one's good too, but I haven't heard it yet.
Here's the thing. It's good because it's Paradise Lost.
Yeah, I'm not
doing
too
it.
into that idea though.
But I think I'm wondering why November did it, but that album came out on Century Media. Dreams did. Wish I Could Dream It Again was, I mean, I think they were really young, and it was just
Right.
kind of, it was on like a smaller label. I think it was on, God, what's the name of that? Polyphemus.
Oh, okay.
Goofy fucking album cover. It doesn't look like a metal album cover at all. Phenomenal album though, but Materia, The Blue, and Ursa were the three that came out on Peaceville starting in 2006, and just a phenomenal, I mean, a great band, and it, you know, says they're still active. I was just jamming all three the other day. Really good stuff. If you like newer Catatonia, like you
Okay.
like, you know, it's kind of in that vein. It's like kind of gothic, doomy, but you know, it's not really death metal at all anymore.
Right.
The early stuff I think had more death metal elements, black metal elements to it, but the newer stuff is great. But they're another forgotten band. Says they're still on Peaceville, so hopefully, you know, they put another album out soon.
And you know, their band, Carpathian Forest had a EP on
Vital
Peaceville, too.
Remains.
Yeah, Vital Remains.
That was Def Records, though, I think, right?
Yeah, which is still, I mean,
Which
the
is still,
Peaceville. I mean,
because
so,
that's what the early
because
applications.
Def Records. If you bring up the Def Records, I mean, that was Banished, and that was Mortal Scald. I think it was Def.
Therion.
Therion, yeah.
I think the first, at least of Darkness, I think was on Death. I don't know if anything else was on Death. I know at least of Darkness, which I think is,
Yeah.
again, there's another band that people think Therion, and they think of like the, you know, the goofy fucking kind of symphonic operatic shit that I am just not
Yeah,
into.
which is terrible.
I remember
It's like Tiamat
buying.
is like that,
You
too.
remember Theli or Theli or however you say it. I remember my buddy was like, "Yeah, we have to check this out because I heard a lot about it. That it's like really heavy and it's kind of, you know, it's like real bombastic and shit." And we went and bought it, had the
Actually,
windows down, and that thing came on with the fucking opera singers. And dude, I was embarrassed. I was like, this is not, it's not even like the music sucks. It's just goofy because it's like all, and then so when I heard of Darkness on Def Records, that is an underrated Swedish death metal album.
Oh yeah, and
Absolutely disgusting.
people
album.
forget that At the Gates was also a Def band too, technically. And
Yeah,
I think one of the
they
most
were.
underrated Def Records releases though has to be Deceased by Accidental Suicide.
Yes.
Accidental Suicide is a cool. That's like a proto death grind that doesn't get a lot of credit.
You can
either.
still buy that, I think, because
Oh, it's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
it's totally unsung. It's great. I've been jamming that a lot lately. When we were doing the retrospective, I might have jammed that record probably the most.
the first couple Vital Remains.
Oh,
were
yeah,
on
really
Death,
good.
Which to me,
Impaler. Impaler's a fun band.
yeah.
Like,
Vital Remains to me, Let Us Pray is that
Yeah.
dude fucking, was it the vocalist of Jeff Gruslin or whatever? Amazing fucking vocals, dude. I love that dude's voice. Is he on the first one? I'm pretty sure he is. But I could be completely wrong in showing my... yeah, Jeff Gruslin. Yeah. But...
and Isengard
Those
too
first-
was another Def Records release, and I like the first first couple
that's
Isengard.
Fenriz, right?
Yeah, it's the folk metal project.
What was the one called, like Vinter Skuga or something? I
yeah.
remember seeing it back in the day, but
Well,
yeah, it's just folk.
Moonfog did a great Storm with him and Satir, and that woman who tried to sue them afterwards because she was like a Christian and didn't know she was singing. She's like a folk singer in Norway. That album, Storm, is a great project that he did. But Isengard was like his one man folk metal thing.
Yeah.
Where he yodels.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fucking odd.
I think
love
Vinter
it.
Skuga is the one where he's just like on the cover with like a black leather jacket or something.
That's Isengard, where he's in front of like a gate.
It's just that. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Okay.
just looks, like Fenrir. I mean,
It's fucking Fenriz, dude. He
Yeah.
does whatever he wants. Fenriz is like... Fenriz is to Norway and to metal, like to me, what Chris Ryford is to the U.S. and to metal. It's like they're just these... They're both drummers. You know what I mean? They do whatever the fuck they want. They're both on Peaceville. It's like...
I think a band that you probably might check out that we haven't really mentioned a whole lot ever is, that kind of an early Peaceville band that kind of bridged in Def Records that kind of bridges that punk metal gap was Prophecy of Doom, which doesn't really get a whole lot of credit. Acknowledge the Confusion Master is awesome. That's an awesome release that really kind of blends the like weird doom punk grind kind of hybrid. Awesome release. So if people haven't checked out Prophecy of Doom is great. They're on a UK punk sampler, the Trapped in a Scene comp, which is great. Prophecy of Doom definitely worth checking out. If you're into like kind of weird, more avant-garde bands.
UK band. Huh?
Yeah, really really cool. They that Confusion that came out in '90, I think. Yeah. So definitely one to check out if you're
looking at Def Records now, and definitely, yeah, dude, fucking Therion.
They did like Prophecy of Doom and Axe Grinder did like a split thing.
It looks like Pitch Shifter was on
Def.
Def.
Yeah, I think they tried to. That was kind of like their more the heavier bands. They tried to separate the heavier bands on those, and then
so this Impaler, I always get fucked up with
the Thrashy Impaler.
The U.S.
Yeah.
Or am I thinking Impaled or no? It's Impaler, right?
There was an Impaler from the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. But Baphomet, The Dead Shall Inherit. I mean, that's, to me, that album is so good.
I think Banished is also really, really good too. I mean, I think both bands are I think Banished is a little bit more modern and kind of gets more into that like Skinless kind of territory, what Skinless would become. Baphomet's definitely more, I think classic old school sounding. But what's your favorite Dark Throne of the first three? Well, of the Trinity, not the.
Okay, I was gonna say, honestly, Under a Funeral Moon.
It's mine too.
It's
my favorite black metal album probably ever.
That's the one that's, and it's not because it's not talked about as much, but I remember listening to Blaze and then Transylvanian. But when I listened to Under a Funeral Moon, I was like, man, this is like way cooler to me.
I agree with Fenris.
I think they're all good, but
that's a perfect it's totally just a great black metal record.
Yeah,
it's perfect. I don't think as far as when they went raw with their raw black metal stuff. Of those three, I think the sound they were going for, they nailed on Under a Funeral Moon.
Yeah.
Transylvanian Hunger is super. It's a different vibe, and I get what they did. I get why people love that one the most. I think it's the most over the top in that way they were going. And I get why people think that A Blaze in the Northern Sky is the best because it kind of blends the death metal and it's not so raw. Maybe it's not so there all the way yet. But I think if you're a real black metal, I think that's the sweet spot is Funeral Moon.
Yeah, for sure. I can tell you right now, my top 10 releases, because Pentagram, Relentless,
classic.
Autopsy, Mental Funeral.
That's
Baphomet, Dead Shall Inherit. Now this is not just Peaceville; it's also Death.
Okay, yeah, which makes sense.
Dark Throne, Underground Resistance.
Okay,
it's my favorite Dark Throne. I know a lot of people are probably like, "What the fuck?"
It's a good album.
But Vital Remains, Let Us Pray, Pitch Shifter, Industrial, Anathema. I put down Alternative 4. I just thought.
All right, I'm out here.
To me, anything from, like I said, Crestfallen all the way up to Judgment. But if we're going just Peaceville, I would pick Alternative 4 because I think it's the perfect mix of. It's really where they started to change, but it was, to me, it was like to use your term, like that sweet spot where it was just great.
Yeah.
Opeth, Still Life.
Okay.
Which, I think is a great album. Really, probably the last Opeth that I think is just absolutely perfect to me. I do like Blackwater Park, Deliverance, Ghost Reveries, Watershed. Like they're good albums, but to me, Still Life was the last one that really kind of held on to that that old Opeth feel before Michael Ackerfeld turned into like this pretentious fucking prog nerd.
Yeah, I can't get into what they're doing now.
The other one being
the Acrimony record is fantastic though, and doesn't get.
I'm mentioning that last because I know that Dance of December Souls is No Fashion Records, but I was trying to go through. It was also, I think, at one point reissued by Peaceville. So to be honest with you, I don't know why the fuck I even had that on there as top 10. I think I would probably choose Tonight's Decision for Catatonia.
It's a good, that's great. I think that's a pivotal record.
But Acrimony Tumuli is just a phenomenal a great album, and crazy because it's like another left turn it's just like another twist for Peaceville.
Yeah, it's not the only record that sounds like that on Peaceville.
That's the weird thing. Now,
it should have been on, if they were on like Rise Above. I always thought this album was on Rise Above Records.
Rise Above, Music Cartel, fucking Man's Ruin back in the day.
Yeah, Man's Ruin.
Shit like that. I mean, God, what was the other? Meteor City. This
is maybe crazy, but I could see, if you told me, oh no, you're wrong, actually, Dope, like a Dope Throne is on Peaceville, and this Acrimony record is on, Rise Above, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, they should probably be flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where, I could see, like, maybe not the first Electric Wizard, but I could definitely see, like, Come My Fanatics being on Peaceville, and I wouldn't bat an eye at it.
Yeah.
Because it would, like, totally make sense. It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's kind of brooding. It's not stoner.
Yeah.
It's stoner influence. Maybe, I don't know. Electric Wizard's kind of weird about whether they were. I think they kind of were, but it's you can like stoner and like Electric Wizard. It's not like a leap.
Yeah,
but, you know what I'm saying?
Anybody that I know that likes stoner, it's like they like Electric Wizard.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a stoner fan, you might not like Thurgothan records.
Yeah, exactly. That's a little different.
But if you like Thurgothan, you probably have some Wizard records.
Yeah, that could be a whole other
that's a different
episode that we could talk about, like.
You know what I'm saying about how you could flip these records? Like, you could have...
Yeah, for sure, because Tumuli, again... Now, if there is another stoner album on Peaceville, somebody can tell us about, this is the only one. When I was thinking about stoner, I just thought...
But they do, like, bands like Dadomsgard, which I was going to say with, like, is another band that's, like, a weird band that doesn't really fit in with, with black metal. Yeah, with, like, they don't fit in with black metal. They don't fit in with a lot of industrial stuff. They don't fit in with a lot of avant-garde music. They have that sweet spot. They have those bands that just kind of do their own thing. I think that's kind of what they like, so...
Yeah, no, this is another... Peaceville is also big on UK bands, apparently.
Yeah, but I like that too. I like that they kind of do like homegrown bands. I think that's a cool thing.
But yeah, that was my top 10. Just trying to go through. I probably...
I think you'd like Axe Grinder a lot. Rise of the Serpent Man. I think you dig that album a lot.
I would have put Paradise Lost on, but Icon and Draconian Times are not on Peaceville. And the first two, as much as I love them, I'm like, yeah. Axe Grinder, I definitely will check that out. I've seen the name about 1 million times.
If I really had to pick, 10, just off the top of my head, in no order, I would probably go Mental Funeral, Serenades, Turn Loose the Swans. I would have to pick Industrial. I would have to pick Under Funeral Moon. The Only Good Punk is a Dead One by Electro Hippies. I would pick Gothic. I would go... Picking a Pentagram record is so ridiculous to me. I'd pick one. Day of Reckoning, Relentless, B41 could be on there for all I care.
Yeah.
And I would go Welcome to the Orgy would probably be at the spot. I think I'm at 9 now for that. And my last one, if I really had to pick, a last one, I would go Great Full Distance, and that's my 10. I mean, I'm sure there are ones I'm missing, but those are definitely ones those are records that when I think of Peaceville, I have to pick those.
Yeah. No, I think that it's weird as a label when you look at the bulk of the releases that they put out. I mean, I said this earlier. The classic fucking releases. They didn't put out a lot as compared to.
That's what I was going to say. This
Blast.
is going to be kind of a shorter episode because they don't have a whole lot of material.
Yeah.
I was looking at the Relapse stuff and I was like, this is going to be a 5-hour long. Like Relapse has 1 billion releases.
Why don't we get? I want to see if we get King and see what his opinions are.
Well, it'd be a really quick episode. He'd put the deceased records, then he'd walk out of my house. So that's like, but
no, but for sure, I think I don't have a problem. It's weird. It's like even the one-off shit that Peaceville did, like Acrimony, when they put out Tumuli Shroom Room. It's still fucking great. It's like a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. You know, so
quality
even
over
the
quantity.
What's that?
It's quality over quantity.
Yeah, so it's like even the weird shit that comes out, like Pitch Shifter Industrial. It's a fucking perfect album. I actually bought that for Justin several years ago for Christmas. I got him the vinyl. He never heard it. And we sat in his basement. He threw it on. It was just like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's a great album. And so all the stuff that they put out, I mean, to me, it's like the whole tortoise and the hare thing.
Yeah.
They're the tortoise, and they're just kind of
going, yeah.
Just going and going and going. And all of these other labels are trying to jump on all this shit and get all these new bands. You know, Metal Blade included, you know, they have signed a lot of complete fucking diarrhea.
I think the problem with some of those labels might be, and I was going to say this too, especially with Metal Blade, Relapse is a different animal, which we will get to when we get to Relapse, because, you know, I'm a big Relapse defender, as much as I shouldn't be, maybe. But, and as hard as it is sometimes, it's like having a drug addict child. I love them, but they fuck up a lot. But the problem is, I think, like, again, aside from maybe Dark Throne being maybe call them a cash cow, but Metal Blade's had some very huge bands.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to Roadrunner, we'll get to this issue too. Like, you don't have bands that are that big and go backwards.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of like that. I kind of feel for those labels. It's like when you have cash cow bands like that, it's like you get into a different territory where you're like, I don't know, man. Your days of signing, like, you know, the doom metal band from down the street kind of maybe passed you by.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you don't have Slipknot records on Peaceville. You know.
I think that other labels, though, could sign bands like that. And I think that sometimes Metal Blade does kind of do things here.
And also
and there.
bands like Vomitory that are, we'll get to that. I mean, great death metal band. I mean, you talk about More to Skull, talk about consistent death metal bands, but like that have been on Autopsy. I think if you're talking about consistency, Vomitory is up there with Autopsy. They're up there. They're up there. They have to be included. They have a fucking awesome discography.
I don't. Yeah, I'd love to be listening to the decision making. You know, the people at Peaceville now, not just with, you know, Hammy back in the day, but it's got to be like, pick a group of bands, stick with them, be loyal. They're just going to put out a bunch of stuff, and it's like, are they really the only label that's ever kind of done this, where they have the same core group of bands that they're still putting out stuff like quality material after all these years, and it's like still, they're just a respectable label. I mean, they have an iconic logo, as far as I'm concerned, you know, iconic bands. And when we get into, I can guarantee you right now, when we get into especially, I would say, Century Media and Relapse, it's going to start out great. And it's going to end with us just slagging the fuck out of both of those labels, especially Century Media, because of what they became.
Also, you know, I think there's definitely, you know, for a label to come for as far as it came on this Vile Peace comp, just so we start, you know, you have Axe Grinder, you have Electro Hippies, like we mentioned. You also have Chumbawamba, when they were still a crust punk band. Chumbawamba is maybe their, that's as far as like Tub Thumper, I Get Knocked Down, but I Get Up Again band, Peaceville, on the first Peaceville compilation. So, and the band Doom, Insurrection, not the Insurrection. We don't support the band Insurrection. Please don't kick us off. Hellbastard. So they came a long way from those crust punk. And you can even say, if you really want to be one of these guys, it's like by the time they signed, death metal bands, they kind of had a different vibe, which I don't agree with. I think they still kind of kept true to the form, but from those early punk beginnings to never really changing to signing what they want to sign. I think Peaceville is the archetype label of what an underground label should be. How it should be ran.
There's something I did not know. I guess Catatonia is not on Peaceville anymore. The new one's on Napalm.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
I was sitting there wondering. I'm like, I wonder if they're the other band that's been on, but I don't know. I guess the new album's on Napalm.
What's Bloodbath on now?
Bloodbath? God, what is that album on? I think it's on. I think they're on Napalm
The first
now.
one was on Peaceville, right? In the EP. What's Breeding Death on?
No, I think Resurrection and Nightmares Made Flesh. I think those were on Century Media.
What was the first EP on?
Breeding Death, Century Media.
Because they were never on Peaceville either. Were they?
Hold on. No, they were.
They were for Grand Morbid.
Yeah, kind of like in the middle. I think. Yeah, the last album. The newest one I kind of knew was. That one is. I guess they're on Napalm as well. Which is interesting because Nick Holmes on vocals.
Yeah.
Bloodbath. Now, it used to be Michael Ackerfeld, but now he's, wearing monocles and listening to old fucking, Camel albums.
What were the Peaceville records that Opeth did? Because I don't follow Opeth because I have
just Still
I have
Life.
A penis that works. So
Just Still Life, as far as I remember. Still Life was. Everything else, I think, was either Candlelight. See if I'm right.
Because Orchid was Candlelight.
Yes, Orchid, Morning Rise, and My Arms are all Candlelight, but they were also released over here on the Century Black.
Yeah, that's what I. Yeah, okay.
But Still Life, maybe Black. Yeah,
Music for
Blackwater
Nations.
Park is Music for Nations, but Still Life was the only one on Peaceville.
It is a kind of a doomier one, right? Isn't it? So.
It's the last one that really, for me, kind of harkens back to like that first era, and then Blackwater Park they've really started, to gain popularity with that as far as I'm concerned, and then, Watershed was the last thing they put out, which I think is a fucking great album. Great album, but then after that they turned into like a fucking goofy Hammond B3 organ 70s prog band, and I blame that. I don't even know if I'm even. This is who I blame it on. As much as I love the band Porcupine Tree as a prog band, I love every album. I love that band, but I blame that band for changing Opeth because God, what the fuck is his name? Stephen. It's gonna bug the hell out of me now. Whatever his name is, I'm looking right at it. The dude from Porcupine Tree. I'm saying I'm a huge fan, and I'm having a complete brain fart with it's gonna. Stephen Wilson. My God.
Stephen Wilson, yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking something else, but Stephen Wilson produced.
I go and think about Steven Adler. He's actually cool though, and would that's
but yeah, Stephen Wilson.
So
he produced an Opeth album, so I think I'm always like, man, he had to have fucking chased Michael Ackerfeld or something. I don't know, but yeah, Still Life was the only one that is Peaceville. And it's also weird because there's a lot of albums in, you know, the later era, when you look at the list of Peaceville, that they just, I mean, there's like Cradle of Filth stuff on there, but they just maybe re-released it or put out like the vinyl.
Exactly.
Like reissued the vinyl.
I don't include that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, because that's when it gets, you know, real. There's so many different albums that came out, you know, that they could. I mean, you could go buy Theory of Darkness, and it's not on Def Records. It's on Peaceville.
Yeah, right.
Now, so.
But I honestly think you should check out, you know, more Psy. I think, as far, I mean, like, they have some good material that I think, like, maybe you would dig some of the stuff they did on Peaceville. I mean, Infidel Art and stuff like that is more maybe albums you wouldn't be too into. They're a little kind of weird, but.
Dude, I've tried so many years. I've tried Scorn Defeat.
Scorn Defeat's great. That's not on Peaceville.
No, but so much shit that I've tried.
That's the cool thing about Peaceville too. Like, they put out records for bands, but they don't really own bands' entire catalogs. Like, they'll just do, like, you know, one or two, like, you know, the DSP records by Psy are amazing, by the way.
What is it?
The Death Like Silence Productions records they did were incredible. They're fucking they're like, Scorn Defeat's great, man.
I'll have to check it out. I know that the other stuff, to me,
they have a billion albums too.
They do, but the shit to me, like Imaginary Sonescape and then everything after,
they do have some stuff that's definitely weird as hell.
Fucking goofy. I just cannot get into it. I don't know. And people love them, and it's got a lot of respect for them. They've been out for, you know, a long time. There's the one guy in it. There's the Mirai Mirai Kawashima. I mean, he was on a Necrophagia album. You know, I'm just not. Dude, you know, I love everything Japanese. I love. This is the one band that I'm like, and here's another band that. Not a Peaceville band, but talking about Japanese stuff that I always tell people that I'm not really into them, and they're just blown away. It's Church of Misery.
Well,
just can't do it.
I
don't know, man. It just everybody's.
I get it. I mean, I just, that's insane. I don't know how that's. But there is a band actually. You probably like this a lot with that's guys from Church of Misery.
Oh, okay.
Vinthes is a great band. That's the one that guy from Church of Misery, like the bass player. Awesome, more stonery too. Not as goofy as Church of Misery, but you might dig that. So.
Yeah, but no, this is. It was cool to go through this. I knew it wasn't going to be like an hour and a half, 2 hour episode because we were just going to be talking about like this core group of bands because that's really.
Yeah.
Again. The majority of the label, majority of the albums that came out, but so many fucking just perfect albums.
Yeah, and perfect bands. I mean, that have a lot of great. It's a great way to start. You know, shoot us, like, let us know what your favorite records are. I'll make a playlist too, and I'll throw it in the group. With that up tomorrow. So, some of our favorite songs from all these classic bands. If you're a younger fan, especially, and you haven't checked out Peaceville, definitely go through the Metal Archives, go through all the records, different genres to check out.
Yeah, just get on.
If you're into anything, whether you're into punk or black metal or doom or, you know, there's something for everybody. That's why it's a great label. One of the best things about the 90s labels is there's some kind of band for every flavor that you're into.
Yeah, and it's like 99% of the time, especially if it's Peaceville, it's good.
Yeah, I liked when labels did this and they weren't sub genre defined. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And we'll have to get another episode out, you know, sometime in 2024.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be 90 degrees outside in summer by the time we do the next one.
Well, you got the one with Billy from Razor. How are we doing? Is he
going to be
up
Zoom?
Here?
Yeah, he's going to be via Zoom. So,
Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you. I was like, is it going to be here? Is it going to be? Didn't he want somebody else to be a part of it?
I think he's gonna have one of his buddies. So I think he wants to incorporate a little horror into it too, as he always does, because he has his magazines and his books and.
Oh, 100%. I'm down with that. I'll have to wear my.
He knows we're big horror movie fans. So.
Yeah, I'll have to wear my evil.
You can't have
shirt.
Billy without I'll have to drink whiskey too.
Dude, I love Billy. I love Razorback. I have an Evil Speak shirt. I have the issues. Like, it's a great. I wish that label was still around.
I'm gonna grill him because I have a lot of fond memories with the Razorback stuff, and I wish I could get some more releases.
I haven't heard one bad thing. When you I'm on the Brave board, Brave Words, Bloody Knuckles message board. You bring up Razorback Records, everyone is like, dude,
awesome.
We missed that label. It was fucking great. There wasn't a lot of bands on it, but the shit he put out was like awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Frightmare is one of those two albums.
WTN is one of the greatest grind. The Singaporean grind is. You put out a Singaporean grindcore record that's amazing. I fucking love
Dude,
your
he put
label
out
for
Hooded
life.
Menace.
Oh yeah, Mashtazo.
Yeah,
So many.
Crypticus. Fucking get out of here. That's
Ghoul.
It's gonna be
Self Relish.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be us basically like yelling at him, telling him to get.
I was
his ass in here.
16 years old and into grindcore and horror movies and porn, and that guy fucking created a label. It was a gift from heaven that he gave me.
Yes.
Like, I used to be great friends with all the Lore Gore guys and used to talk to them all the time. I won a Lore Gore shirt when I was in high school because I knew that their intro and one of their songs was this music from the Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent me like free shit. Awesome. Like Razorback was so cool, and they're quintessential underground label.
Yeah.
And I almost kind of like that they're not around as much anymore because I like that it kind of existed and now it's like in total old school fashion. Like I hate everything now. I'm just gonna go be old and not do music anymore.
No, we'll do one with him. That's coming up here within like a month, right?
Yeah, we'll do that sometime in January. So
cool.
But I think we're gonna do we'll probably do the Relapse one in parts. So I was thinking maybe next time just do a Relapse part 1.
Okay.
Because Relapse is gonna have to be a 2 or 3 parter because there's too much.
You think so?
Relapse has 9 zillion albums they've released. There's too much material to go over.
It could be like that with Metal Blade and
Century Media will have to be a 2-parter or 3-parter too. There's too much stuff.
No, it'll be good though.
I mean, some of it I'll probably take a nap for, but there's a lot of shit.
But yeah, we're gonna get one. We'll get the next one going here quite soon, especially after the holidays and whatnot.
Definitely.
And then we'll have the one with Billy, and just kind of forge ahead. So hopefully it won't be another, 72 years, 8 decades before we do another episode. So
right. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.